My name is Watson. Life taught me to earn a living through mechanics, but that didn't mean my heart had stopped dreaming. My days were a cycle, morning till night surrounded by oil, grease, and broken parts. I fixed cars, repaired engines, and by night, climbed up to the small room above my workshop to find a little sleep. That day, I found myself far from my workshop, standing in front of an old marble building. I was there to repair a faulty elevator. Golden autumn leaves were scattered on the steps, and tall glass doors reflected the gray November sky. That's when I saw her. A little girl sat at the edge of the marble steps, wearing a light blue dress and a pink knitted hat with a big pom-pom on top. In her arms, she clutched an old teddy bear as if it were her lifeline. I slowed my pace. "Hey, kiddo, are you here all by yourself?" She looked up at me but didn't answer right away. There was a tiredness in her big eyes, the kind that doesn't belong on a child's face. And then she spoke softly, "If you carry me up the stairs, I'll tell you a secret." I chuckled, but there was something in her voice, an innocence that touched me deeper than I expected. "And if I don't carry you?" I teased. She just stayed quiet, running her tiny fingers along the frayed seam of her teddy bear. There was a sadness in her eyes, as if her story was far bigger than her small frame could hold. I held out my arms. "All right, young lady, you've got yourself a deal." The moment I lifted her, I realized how light she was, far too light for her age. Her body felt fragile, like she'd been carrying some silent weakness for a long time. I took the steps slowly, feeling her tiny hands resting on my shoulders. "What's your name?" I asked. "Leeza," she said with a faint smile. "And you're a mechanic?" "Watson," I replied. "Yeah, a mechanic, who sometimes fixes elevators too." She giggled, but even her laughter carried a trace of exhaustion, as if every chuckle cost her a little strength. When we reached the third floor, she leaned in close to my ear and whispered, "My secret, I'll only tell you when you come back to see me." I stopped in my tracks. "And if I don't come back?" She closed her eyes and said, "Then my secret will always stay mine." What I didn't know then was that this tiny encounter would change the course of my entire life. I carried Leeza down a long hallway with faded carpeting that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old paint. The building had the kind of quiet that wasn't peaceful, just tired. She pointed to a door with a brass 3F that had been polished so hard it was almost a mirror. Before I could knock, it swung open. A woman in a navy cardigan and a neatly tied headscarf stood there, eyes widening when she saw us. "Leeza, you can't be on the stairs alone." Then her gaze flicked to me, to the red toolbox in my hand, to the leather belt at my waist. She formed a quick read the way only worried mothers can. "You carried her?" "Only because she bribed me," I said. "Promised me a secret." The woman's shoulders relaxed a fraction. "Thank you." She stepped aside. "I'm Nadia. Please, come in for a minute." I set Leeza on a small couch near the window. The apartment was clean, careful, the kind of place where everything has a place because money can't replace what breaks. A kettle hissed on the stove. On the wall, crayon drawings, pink hats, blue dresses, a teddy bear with brown ears. In each one, a little yellow arrow floated above a girl's head like a crown. "Your art?" I asked. Leeza beamed. "My arrows show people where to look. Some grown-ups forget." "Clever," I said, and she gave me that tired little smile again. Nadia brought me a chipped mug of tea I didn't remember accepting. Up close, you could see what worry does to a person, faint lines carved by too many nights half-slept. "She shouldn't be on the stairs," Nadia said gently to Leeza. "You know you get dizzy." "I was waiting near the door," Leeza protested softly, "in case the elevator worked." She glanced at my toolbox. "He's the fixer." Cleared my throat. "About that, the super called me in. Says the elevator keeps freezing between floors." "It's been a month," Nadia said. "Third floor is a mountain with her breathing." I looked back at the little girl. Her hands were fine-boned, the skin a shade too pale. The kind of pale that comes from too many quiet rooms and too many whispered instructions. "If I can get it running by tonight," I said. "Will that earn me the secret?" Leeza considered this diplomatically, the pom-pom on her hat wobbling as she thought. It will earn you the first half. Half a secret? Now you're just cruel. She giggled, and for a moment the tiredness in the room lifted. Nadia walked me to the door, speaking low. She has a heart condition, she said. Cardiomyopathy. Her energy, it's like sand in an hourglass. Fine until it isn't. Stairs aren't good for her. The sentence settled into me like a cold weight. I nodded once, the only promise I had the right to make. I'll try. Down in the basement, the elevator machinery was housed behind a dented steel door with a lock that had given up on intimidation. Inside smelled of dust and hot metal. The motor sat like a stubborn animal, cables running up through a slot toward floors stacked above like book pages. I ran my fingers along conduit, listened, felt the vibration of something not quite right. The control board flickered unevenly, power sagging under load. Someone had bridged a burned relay with a paperclip once. I've seen a lot of reckless things, but that little piece of office courage might have been the most reckless. Who did this? I muttered to the empty room. By the time I had the board on the floor and the motor housing open, my shirt stuck to my back and my knuckles had a hopeful sheen of new scrapes. Fixing things is a strange intimacy, your hands inside a problem, learning its secrets. But elevators aren't engines. They're promises. I'll take you up. I'll bring you down. I won't leave you between. Halfway through replacing the relay bank with the ones I kept in a battered tackle box, I heard footsteps behind me. The building super, a broad-shouldered man with a gray mustache, leaned in the doorway. You Watson? Thought you'd be older. Disappointing day for both of us? I said without looking up. Who put a paperclip across our three? He sniffed. Defensive. Temporary measure. People needed to get to work. Temporary measures are how buildings learn to fall apart, I said. If I take down the car for an hour, you're going to have a lobby of complaints. You'll have 5, he said. Then they'll get tired and walk. Not all of them can. I turned a bolt until the squeal turned into a soft, satisfied click. Give me some air, and keep people off the car until I test. He hesitated like a man deciding whether to be helpful or important. Finally, fine. But we close at 6 for maintenance, you hear? We're maintaining, I said, and the motor hummed as if in agreement. Time slid away. There's a rhythm to repair, diagnose, replace, test, swear, repeat, until suddenly the thing you're fixing stops fighting you. When I pressed the test button and the counterweight rose with the calm inevitability of the tide, I felt something in my chest unclench. The doors on the lobby level side open. The super called down the stairwell. You got it. Maybe, I called back. I'm going to ride it. Be my guest, he said, meaning, if it breaks, I know who to blame. The car was small, the light humming softly, walls of brushed metal that had collected the fingerprints of 100 ordinary lives. I touched the 3rd floor button and watched the numbers climb. 1, 2, pause, 3. A clean stop. No shudder. The doors breathed open as if relieved. Down again. Up again. Then with a heavier load, a bag of sand I kept in the van. Up once more. When I stepped out on the 3rd floor, the hallway was emptier than it had any right to be. I knocked on 3F. Leeza opened the door before Nadia could get there, standing a little off balance, like her body remembered the weight of stairs even when she didn't have to climb them. You fixed it, she said, solemn as a judge, and then she grinned. That gets you half a secret. I raised a brow. I'm braced. She leaned close, breath smelling faintly of peppermint tea. I've been practicing being brave, she whispered. When the elevator broke, I told Mama I'd wait on the steps for someone brave too. So I waited for you. I held very still because my body has always been clumsy with fragile things. That's quite a secret. It's only half, she reminded me. The other half is for another day. Terms and conditions, I said. Do I need to sign something? She thought about this seriously. A promise is better. Nadia touched her shoulder. Inside. You need to rest. Leeza saluted me with her teddy bear and retreated. Nadia stayed at the door, the hallway light making a halo on the floor between us. "How much do we owe you, Mr. Watson?" I named a number that would cover parts and leave no room for pride. Nadia's mouth tightened, and I could see the arithmetic behind her eyes. Rent, medicines, groceries, school shoes turned into numbers that refused to add up. "Or," I said gently, "you could owe me a cup of tea next week if I come check the board and make sure the fix holds." Her gaze softened with a mixture of relief and that other thing. Caution. Accepting help from strangers is a luxury for people who don't know what it costs. "Tea," she said, "but we will pay you properly." "I'll take it in installments," I said. "Your daughter already paid the down payment." Nadia laughed then, a quick, surprised sound that knocked a year off her face. "She does that to people." Back in the lobby, the super was counting complaint slips like they were lottery tickets. "Well, it'll hold," I said. "But replace that main breaker before it gets any ideas about heroism. I'll email you the part." He grunted, which I took for gratitude. Outside, the November light had thinned to gold. I should have gone straight back to the workshop. Engines, invoices, the quiet little room where I slept with the window cracked so I could smell the night. Instead, I found myself across the street at a charity shop that sold odd pieces of furniture and the kinds of little things people don't need until they do. I bought a small night lamp shaped like a moon. Not expensive, not necessary, but gentler than the dark. The next week, I returned with the excuse of checking voltages. Nadia's tea was stronger, her smile easier. Leeza had moved her drawings from the kitchen to the living room. New pictures now. An elevator with a smiling face, an arrow pointing up. A man with a toolbox, an arrow pointing to his hands. "Is the arrow because I forget where I left them?" I asked. "It's so you look where you're supposed to," she said. "Grown-ups look everywhere except where the feeling is." "Where is the feeling?" I said. She touched the left side of her chest. "Here. But mine gets tired sometimes. So I draw it extra. We made a ritual of it, the three of us." I checked the board, wiped dust off contacts that didn't need wiping, pretend the motor wasn't purring along perfectly just so I had a reason to stay. Nadia would pour tea and ask polite questions that turned eventually into honest ones. And Leeza would negotiate the terms of her remaining half-secret like a seasoned diplomat. On the fourth visit, the super waylaid me with a box of burnt-out bulbs and a complaint about the trash chute. "While you're in the mood to fix," he said. And I wondered when my job description had expanded to building spare pair of hands. I took the bulbs just the same. When I was done, I found Leeza by the window, sitting on a cushion like a tiny queen. She tapped the glass with the soft tip of her finger. Outside, the marble steps were stippled with new leaves, a deeper gold. "Can I tell you a not secret?" she asked. "Please. I don't like hospitals." She said it with a scholar's care. "They smell like when you're about to find out something true that you didn't ask for." I sat on the edge of the rug. "Do you have to go often?" She nodded. "There's a doctor named Malik who wears socks with planets. He says my heart is brave but tired. Mama laughs when he says that. I think she wants it to be the other way. Tired but brave sounds like it could stop." I swallowed the roughness in my throat. "Do you know what my heart is?" She considered me seriously. "A fixer's heart." "What does that mean?" "It finds broken things and keeps them company until they remember how to work." I looked down at my hands, at the small new scars that seem to multiply when you're not watching. "I'm not magic, Leeza." "Good," she said. "Magic breaks when you look at it too long. You don't." Nadia moved in the kitchen, and the apartment filled with the smell of cardamom. I wanted to say something kind and ordinary, but the truth is my life had been a succession of machines and hushed rooms, the predictable ease of metal. People were different. People had secrets. "About your secret," I said. "Is there anything I can do to earn the second half faster? I could fix 2 elevators." "That's greedy," she said, delighted. "But okay. You have to take me somewhere." I blinked. "Where?" She pointed to the little lamp I'd brought weeks ago. It glowed on a shelf, moon pale. "Up to the roof. I want to see the real moon with my moon." Nadia appeared at the doorway, the careful neutral look of a mother pretending to be casual about a decision she has already weighed 100 times. "It's only 2 flights," she said. "And the elevator is good." "2 flights up," I said. "And 2 flights down." Leeza clasped her hands. "And I will tell you the second half of the secret." I understood then that the secret had always had less to do with words than with trust. "All right," I said. "But you have to promise me you'll tell me if you're tired." She rolled her eyes at the ceiling with the exquisite patience of the very young. "Grown-ups," she said to her teddy bear. "They all say the same thing." The elevator ride to the 5th floor felt like a ceremony. The doors closed with a soft hush. Leeza held the moon lamp in her lap like a small planet. Nadia stood beside us, one hand gently around her daughter's forearm, and I watched the numbers blink upward. 3, 4, 5. We stepped into a hallway that smelled faintly of laundry soap and warm dust, followed it to a narrow door with a sign that said roof access, authorized only. The super had given me a key weeks ago, muttering something about emergencies. I guess this counted. The rooftop was a plain rectangle of tar and grit, ringed by a waist-high barrier. The city breathed around us. Neon starting to fizz, windows turning into little fields of light. The evening had the crispness of a new page. We sat near the edge, and Leeza set the lamp down, switching it on so the fake moon kept company with the rising real one. "It's like having a friend who understands," she said. "What does the real moon understand?" I asked. "That sometimes you're whole and bright," she said simply. "And sometimes you're a little missing, and that's okay." We were quiet for a while. The world down there kept happening. Sirens far away, a bus releasing a sigh, someone laughing through an open window 5 buildings over. Up here, time felt less like a line and more like a circle you could rest inside. "Ready," Leeza said at last. "For the second half?" She nodded and patted the spot beside her. I sat. Nadia stood a little behind us, arms folded against the slight chill, a sentinel with tired eyes and a fierce will. Leeza turned the moon lamp in her hands until the plastic seam lined up with the real moon like 2 secrets becoming one. "I told Mama I'd wait for someone brave," she said. "But that wasn't the whole thing. The rest is, I promised myself that when I found him, I would ask for one thing." "What thing?" My voice was softer than I meant it to be. She looked straight at me, the kind of gaze that doesn't blink because it doesn't have time to waste. "Fix my heart," she said. And there it was, the impossible request given without fear. A little girl handing a mechanic the one puzzle no wrench can touch. I didn't look at Nadia because I was afraid of what I'd see there. I kept my eyes on the small moon in Leeza's hands, on the reflection of the real one in her pupils. "I don't know how to fix hearts," I said at last. "Not the way you mean." "I know," she said almost cheerfully. "But you can fix an elevator. And stairs are the worst part of the world." I laughed, and the sound broke something in me that needed breaking. "That I can do," I said. "I can keep the world from being the worst part." She nodded, satisfied. "Then I told you my secret." "Both halves," I said. She considered. "Maybe there's a third half," she said. "But that's for another time." "Mathematically suspicious," I said. "Emotionally correct," she countered. A line I suspect she'd inherited from Nadia. When we rode down, her head leaned against my shoulder, warm and light. At the 3rd floor, the doors slid open and she hopped, carefully, onto the hallway carpet. "I'm going to draw a picture of the moon and put an arrow so people remember to look," she announced. "Good," I said. "People forget." At the apartment door, Nadia touched my arm. "Thank you," she said. There was a catch in it. A little tear in the fabric of calm that mothers wear when they're too tired to stitch it up again. "For the elevator. For this." "I only pressed buttons," I said, "because sometimes a man needs to keep his words small to keep from spilling." But that night, in the little room above my workshop, I didn't sleep. I lay with the window open, the city breathing its warm breath through the screen. I thought about elevators and promises and a girl with a moon lamp who drew arrows so people remembered to look where the feeling was. I thought about the question she had asked, the one no mechanic can answer with tools. fix my heart. By morning, I had made a decision that felt like turning a wrench on a bolt I'd ignored for years. Some fixes don't live under floors or behind panels. Some fixes ask you to show up, and then keep showing up. I packed my toolbox. I packed a thermos of tea, because I was learning. And I drove back to the building with the marble steps and the golden leaves, where an elevator stood between a little girl and the worst part of the world, whispering, "I'll take you up. I'll bring you down. I won't leave you between." And somewhere in that promise, I started to hear a new one rising in me like a motor catching. Steady, patient, inevitable. I'll find a way. I hadn't planned to go back. But for the next 2 days, every time I picked up a wrench or leaned under a car hood, my mind kept drifting back to her. Leeza, with her pink pom-pom hat and the weightless feel in my arms. Her words replayed in my head like a stuck record. "I'll only tell you when you come back." By the third evening, I gave up on pretending I didn't care. I packed my toolbox and took the bus across town, back to that old marble building. When I reached the steps, she wasn't there. No blue dress, no pink hat, no teddy bear. For a moment, I thought maybe I had dreamed her. Inside, the elevator doors were open but taped off, still broken. I asked the receptionist if she'd seen a little girl named Leeza. She hesitated before saying, "Are you a relative?" "No," I said, "just a friend. She lives on the 3rd floor, apartment 302. But she's not feeling well today." Not feeling well. The words hit me harder than I expected. I climbed the stairs, toolbox in hand. The door to 302 was half open. A woman in her early 30s stood there, eyes tired but kind. She introduced herself as Leeza's mother, Sarah. "She's been asking about you," she said quietly, as if she still wasn't sure whether to trust me. "You carried her up the stairs the other day." When I stepped inside, Leeza was lying on a small couch, wrapped in a blanket, the teddy bear tucked under her chin. Her cheeks looked even paler now, but her eyes lit up when she saw me. "You came back," she whispered. I nodded and smiled. "And I believe you owe me a secret." She motioned for me to lean closer. I knelt beside her, the air thick with the faint smell of medicine. Then she whispered something in my ear, and it wasn't at all what I expected. Her tiny voice trembled as she spoke. "My secret is, I'm not going to be here for very long." At first, I thought I'd misheard her. "What do you mean, Leeza?" She took a slow breath. "The doctors say, my heart's too tired. Mommy says I have to rest a lot, but I don't want to rest forever. I want to see things." For a moment, I couldn't speak. The sound of her words pressed down on my chest heavier than any engine block I'd ever lifted. "Why tell me?" I asked quietly. "Because," she said, her eyes glistening, "you didn't look at me like I was broken. Everyone else talks to me like I'm already gone. But you carried me like I mattered." My throat burned. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she'd be fine, that doctors made mistakes. But I couldn't lie, not to her. Instead, I said, "Then let's make a deal. As long as you're here, I'll come back. And every time, you'll tell me one more secret." Her lips curved into the smallest smile. "Okay, but you have to bring me something every time, a tool from your workshop. I'll collect them." It became our thing. Every couple of days, I'd show up at apartment 302 with a new wrench, a tiny bolt, a screwdriver. She'd hold each one like it was treasure. In return, she'd tell me something. A silly joke, a dream she had, a story about her teddy bear. Winter deepened. Snow began to gather on the marble steps outside. And one evening, when I came by, Sarah met me at the door with red eyes. "She's sleeping," she whispered. "The doctors, they don't think she'll wake up." I went inside anyway, sat down beside her couch. The pink hat was on the table, the pom-pom slightly frayed. I picked it up, held it in my hands, and whispered, "Hey, kiddo, it's me, Watson. I brought you one last secret. It's that you changed my life." Her breathing was slow, but I swear I saw the faintest curve of a smile. A week later, I fixed the elevator in that building. But every time the doors slid open on the 3rd floor, I half expected to see a little girl in a blue dress, holding a teddy bear, asking me to carry her up the stairs. And even now, years later, there's a shelf in my workshop with a pink hat, a teddy bear, and a small box of tools, Leeza's collection. Her last secret was that love can happen in the smallest moments, and it can stay with you forever.